The arena lights blazed down like artificial suns, casting harsh shadows across the crystalline fighting platform. 60,000 beings from across the galaxy roared their approval, their voices creating a symphony of alien languages that would make any universal translator cry for mercy. The Galactic Combat Championships had seen many species clash in brutal displays of skill, but today was different. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted life forms. The announcer's voice boomed across the stadium, his four mouths speaking in perfect harmony. Tonight we witnessed something unprecedented in the 1,000-year history of the championships. In the crimson corner stood Kraxon the Destroyer, 8 feet of pure muscle wrapped in scales that could deflect plasma bolts. His forearms moved with practiced precision as he shadowboxed, each movement generating small sonic booms. The crowd chanted his name like a religious mantra. Undefeated in 372 matches. Champion of 17 different fighting disciplines. The undisputed apex predator of combat sports. Kraxon, Kraxon, Kraxon. The chanting was deafening. This wasn't just a fighter. This was a living legend. His home planet had erected statues in his honor. His species, the Valkorians, considered him the embodiment of their warrior culture. Insurance companies refused to cover his opponents. And in the blue corner, and his challenger. The announcer paused, as if he couldn't quite believe the words coming from his own mouth. A human female, age 22, from the backwater planet Earth, Maya Chen. The crowd fell silent. Not the respectful silence of anticipation, but the awkward silence of confusion. Someone had clearly made a mistake. A human? Those soft, pink creatures who barely registered on the galactic power scale? The same species that got excited about moving pictures on rectangular screens? Maya stepped into the light, and the silence deepened. She stood 5'4" in her bare feet. No scales, no natural armor, no visible weapons. Just a girl with short black hair tied in a ponytail, wearing simple fighting clothes that looked like they came from some primitive Earth store. She stretched her arms casually, like she was getting ready for a morning jog. The betting boards went insane. Odds shifted so dramatically that several financial institutions crashed their quantum computers. 10,000 to 1 against a human. Some bookies stopped taking bets altogether, claiming it would be theft. "This is absurd," bellowed Grex the Magnificent, former heavyweight champion and current sports commentator. His purple tentacles writhed with indignation. Humans don't belong in combat sports. They belong in libraries, maybe accounted apartments. Their bones are made of calcium carbonate. I've seen sturdier construction materials in children's toys. His co-commentator, Zilk from the water world of Quanies, nodded her gills in agreement. The Galactic Commission has lost their minds. Grex, this isn't competition. It's assisted suicide. That little human weighs less than one of Kraxon's arms. I've seen more intimidating house pets. But Maya wasn't paying attention to the commentary or the crowd. She was studying her opponent with the focused intensity of a scholar reading an ancient text. Every movement, every breath, every twitch of muscle. Her dark eyes tracked Kraxon's patterns like a predator sizing up prey. "You know what the funny thing is?" she said to herself, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Everyone keeps calling this impossible." The referee, a crystalline being from the Nexus system, floated between them. His transparent form shimmered with official authority. "Fighters, you know the rules. Combat continues until submission, knockout, or—" He paused, looking at Maya with what might have been pity. "Or until medical intervention becomes necessary. Are you absolutely certain you wish to proceed, human?" Maya's smile widened. "Oh, I'm certain. But thank you for asking. It's sweet that everyone's so concerned about my well-being." The sarcasm in her voice was so thick you could have cut it with a plasma blade. Kraxon's 4 eyes narrowed with something that might have been curiosity. In all his battles, he'd never faced an opponent who seemed so relaxed. "Human," Kraxon's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Your species amuses the galaxy with their persistence, but this is beyond foolish. I have killed beings twice your size with a single blow. Withdraw now, and I will make your defeat quick and painless." Maya tilted her head, considering. "That's very generous of you, big guy. Really, But here's the thing about humans that the galaxy seems to have missed in all their research and studying and betting and commentary. She took a step forward, and somehow that single step changed the entire atmosphere of the arena. We don't just persist. We adapt. We learn. We improvise. And we really, really hate being underestimated. The referee backed away, sensors detecting the subtle shift in tension. Fighters, prepare for combat. The crowd held its breath. Betting continued at a frantic pace, with most wagers on how quickly Kraxon would end this farce. The smart money was on under 30 seconds. Begin! Kraxon moved like liquid death. Despite his massive size, he crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat. For arms struck simultaneously in a coordinated attack that had shattered mountains on his home world. The air itself screamed as his fists cut through it. Maya didn't move. She didn't dodge, didn't block, didn't even flinch. She stood perfectly still, watching those four massive fists approach with the calm attention of someone observing a mildly interesting cloud formation. The crowd gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Spectators covered their eyes, unable to watch the inevitable carnage. And then, at the last possible microsecond, Maya moved. Not away from the attack, but into it. She stepped forward into the side, a movement so subtle and precise that most beings miss it entirely. Kraxon's momentum carried him past her, his attacks hitting empty air. But Maya wasn't done. As the massive alien stumbled forward, off balance from the unexpected miss, Maya's hand shot out. Not a punch, not a strike, but something far more surgical. Her fingers found a specific point on Kraxon's neck, just below his primary skull ridge. A point where several major nerve clusters converged, a point that anatomical studies had mentioned in passing, but never considered tactically significant. She pressed, gently, almost tenderly. Kraxon the Destroyer, undefeated champion of the galaxy, unstoppable force of nature, living legend of combat sports, dropped like a sack of rocks. The arena fell silent. Then the silence stretched longer. Then it stretched so long that the quantum clocks started questioning their own existence. Maya stood over the motionless form of her opponent, brushing an imaginary speck of dust from her hands. You know, she said conversationally to the unconscious champion, humans have been studying alien anatomy for decades. We're really good at finding pressure points. The referee floated down, his crystalline form flickering with confusion. His sensors swept over Kraxon repeatedly, unable to process what they were detecting. The champion appears to be, he paused, running diagnostics. Unconscious? But there was no impact, no energy discharge, no. One finger, Maya interrupted helpfully. Apply to the right spot with the right pressure at the right angle. Humans call it acupressure. Your medical files call it impossible. She looked up at the 60,000 stunned faces staring down at her. Surprise. The betting boards exploded. Literally. Several of them caught fire as their quantum processors tried to calculate payouts that broke fundamental laws of mathematics. Bookies across the galaxy suddenly developed mysterious ailments that required immediate vacation time on distant, non-extradition planets. Grex the Magnificent's tentacles had gone completely rigid. That is a human, but Kraxon, how did... His four brains appear to be arguing with each other in real time. Zilk was hyperventilating through her gills. This isn't possible. Humans don't have the strength. They don't have the speed. They don't have the knowledge of Valkorian physiology. Maya looked up at the commentator's booth and waved cheerfully. Actually, we do now. Thanks for all those detailed biological studies your scientists published. Very thorough. Really helped with the research. The crowd finally found its voice, but it wasn't the roar of approval Kraxon usually received. It was a sound of 60,000 beings trying to process something that violated their fundamental understanding of reality. Some cheered, some booed, some just sat in stunned silence, questioning everything they thought they knew about the universe. The winner, the referee announced in a voice that suggested he was as surprised as anyone by technical knockout, Maya Chen of Earth. Maya raised one hand in acknowledgement, then knelt beside the still unconscious Kraxon. She checked his pulse, tested his reflexes, and nodded with professional satisfaction. He'll be fine. Should wake up in about 10 minutes with nothing worse than a bruised ego and a really interesting story to tell. She stood and dusted off her knees. Though I suspect he's going to want a rematch. From the crowd, a voice shouted, "How did you know that would work?" Maya grinned up at the stands. Humans have this saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. But we also have another saying, work smarter, not harder. Your champion is incredibly strong, incredibly fast, incredibly skilled. But he's never fought someone who spent 6 months studying detailed anatomical charts of his species, looking for weaknesses. You see, the galaxy keeps making the same mistake about humans. You think we're weak because we're not physically impressive. You think we're harmless because we don't have natural weapons. But you're missing the most dangerous thing about us. She tapped her temple with one finger. We think, we plan, we adapt. And when someone tells us something is impossible, we take that as a personal challenge. The crowd buzzed with excitement, confusion, and more than a little fear. Maya Chen, the human girl who had just defeated the galaxy's greatest fighter with single touch, was walking toward the exit like she just finished a casual workout. "Wait," called the referee. "The championship ceremony, the trophy presentation." Maya paused at the edge of the platform and looked back with that same small smile. "Keep the trophy for now. I'll be back for it after the rematch." Rematch! The referee's crystalline form flickered with confusion. "But you just won. You're the new champion." "Am I?" Maya's eyes swept the crowd, noting the expressions of shock, disbelief, and grudging respect. "Because it looks to me like most of the galaxy thinks this was a fluke, a lucky shot, an accident." She turned to face the crowd fully, and her voice carried clearly through the arena's acoustics. "So, let me make this simple for everyone. I'll be back in 6 months for a proper tournament. Not just me against Kraxon, but me against any fighter from any species who thinks humans don't belong in the ring." The arena erupted in noise. Challenges shouted from the stands. Threats, promises, and boasts in a dozen languages. Maya listened to it all with obvious amusement. "This should be fun," she said, and walked out of the arena, leaving behind 60,000 speechless beings and one very unconscious ex-champion. Behind her, Kraxon stirred and opened his eyes, looking around in confusion. "What happened? Did I win? Why is everyone staring at me like that?" The referee floated down to help him up. "Champion, former champion, we need to talk." As news of the match spread across galactic communication networks, one thing became crystal clear. Maya Chen hadn't just won a fight. She had started a revolution. And the galaxy was about to learn exactly why you should never underestimate a species that considers impossible just another word for interesting. The human girl had made her point. Now it was time to see who was brave enough to test a point 6 months later. The Galactic Combat Championships had transformed into something unprecedented. What started as a simple rematch request had snowballed into the largest sporting event in recorded galactic history. The arena had been expanded 3 times to accommodate the crowds. Ticket prices reached levels that made entire planets file for bankruptcy. And Maya Chen had become the most famous human in the galaxy. She was also, according to half the civilizations in known space, the most hated. "The human thinks she can defeat our greatest warriors with parlor tricks," snarled Commander Vorthak of the Siege Legion, his battle-scarred face twisted with rage. "She has insulted the honor of every warrior species in the galaxy." Beside him, High Priestess Alina of the Crystal Throne nodded her ethereal head in agreement. "The natural order has been disrupted. Humans are scholars and merchants, not fighters. This abomination must be corrected." Maya sat in her preparation chamber, completely ignoring the death threats being broadcast on every major news network. Instead, she was reviewing holographic displays of her opponents, taking notes on a simple tablet that looked ancient compared to the quantum computers surrounding her. "So," she said to her coach, a grizzled former Earth military instructor named Jack Rivera, "let me get this straight. They've assembled what they're calling the Galactic Elite Death Squad to put me in my place." Jack snorted with amusement. That's the polite translation. The actual name involves several words that would make a pirate blush. He pulled up the roster on his display. 12 fighters, each one a champion of their respective species. each one personally selected for their ability to, and I quote, crush the human pretender like the insignificant insect she is. Charming. Maya continued making notes, her pen moving with practiced efficiency. And they're all coming at me at once. Tournament style. One after another until you lose or they run out of volunteers. Jack shook his head. Maya, I've seen some crazy things in my time, but this is suicide. These aren't like Kraxon. These are killers. Professional, military-trained, genetically enhanced killers who have been preparing specifically to fight you. Maya looked up from her notes, and Jack was surprised to see she was smiling. Not the confident smile she'd worn 6 months ago, but something sharper. Something that reminded him uncomfortably of a shark that had just caught a familiar scent. Jack, do you know what the difference is between confidence and arrogance? Enlighten me. Confidence is when you know you can do something because you've done the work. Arrogance is when you assume you can do something because you've never failed before. She set down her pen and stretched like a cat. The galaxy is about to learn that lesson the hard way. The crowd that packed the expanded arena was different from 6 months ago, where before there had been casual curiosity and dismissive amusement. Now there was genuine hostility. Signs calling for human expulsion from the galaxy. Chants demanding Maya's blood. The betting odds had shifted too, but not in Maya's favor. Most bookies were offering even money that she wouldn't survive the first 3 fights. Maya didn't seem to notice or care. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted apex predators. The announcer's voice carried across the stadium, all 4 of his mouths working overtime to project enthusiasm over the palpable bloodlust. Welcome to the most anticipated event in combat sports history. The crowd's roar was deafening. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was a ritual, a chance for the galaxy to restore the natural order. In this corner, representing 12 distinct warrior cultures and united in their desire to prove human weakness, we present the Galactic elite. The first fighter stepped on the platform, and the arena shook with approval. Thane the Bone Crusher stood 9 feet tall and was covered in natural armor that had evolved to deflect energy weapons. His species, the Kronari, were born warriors who considered pain a luxury. He had never lost a fight. He had never even been injured in a fight. And in this corner, the human who dared to challenge galactic supremacy, Maya Chen of Earth. The boos were so loud that several spectators suffered temporary hearing damage. Maya walked onto the platform like she was taking a stroll through a park, completely unaffected by the wall of hatred washing over her. Human! Thane's voice boomed across the arena like an earthquake. Your tricks will not work twice. I have studied your methods. I have prepared for your deceptions. Maya nodded politely. That's very professional of you. I respect thorough preparation. She began walking in a slow circle around the massive alien, her eyes never leaving his form. Tell me, did your preparation include studying human psychology? What trickery is this? Thane's multiple eyes tracked her movement, but he remained stationary, unwilling to commit to an attack until he understood her strategy. Oh, it's not trickery. It's just curiosity. Maya continued her lazy orbit around the confused warrior. You see, humans have this fascinating relationship with fear. Most species try to overcome fear. We've learned to use it as fuel. Fear! Thane laughed, a sound like grinding stone. You think to frighten me, soft creature? I am Kronari. We are born without the capacity for fear. I know. Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. That's your weakness. She moved so fast that half the crowd missed it entirely. Not toward Thane, but away from him, diving to the side just as his massive fist cratered the platform where she had been standing. But Maya had anticipated the attack, planned for it, and used his own momentum against him. As Thane stumbled forward from his missed strike, Maya was already moving. She leaped onto his back, found a nerve cluster at the base of his armored skull, and applied pressure with surgical precision. Thane dropped like a falling tree. The crowd fell silent. Again. Next. Maya called cheerfully, hopping down from her unconscious opponent. Fighter number 2, a crystalline being whose species considered themselves living weapons, lasted 43 seconds. Fighter number 3, a shapeshifter who could alter his density at will, Managed almost 2 minutes before Maya found a critical point where his nervous system remained vulnerable during transformation. By the sixth fighter, the crowd had stopped booing and started watching in fascination. Maya wasn't just winning, she was making it look effortless. Each opponent brought different abilities, different strategies, different advantages. And each one fell to the same methodical approach: study, adapt, execute. "This is impossible," whispered Gregson Magnificent, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. "She's fighting species she's never encountered before. How can she know their weaknesses?" Zilk's gills were fluttering rapidly. It's like she's reading their biology in real time. But humans don't have that capability. They're not telepathic. They don't have enhanced sensory organs. Maya, standing over her seventh unconscious opponent, looked up at the commentator's booth. "You're right, I'm not telepathic. But I do have pattern recognition. And the funny thing about evolution across different species, similar problems tend to produce similar solutions." She gestured to the fallen warrior at her feet. "Central nervous systems require protection. Sensory organs cluster near decision-making centers. Circulatory systems need pressure regulation. The specific anatomy changes, but the basic principles remain consistent. And humans..." She grinned up at the crowd. "Humans are really, really good at pattern recognition." Fighter number 8 was different. Zara the Void Walker came from a species that existed partially outside normal space-time. She could phase in and out of reality at will, appearing and disappearing like a nightmare made manifest. Her attacks came from impossible angles. Her defenses seemed absolute. Maya studied her for 30 seconds, then nodded to herself. "Interesting. You're not actually phasing out of existence, are you? You're shifting into a parallel dimensional layer. Very clever. Very effective against most opponents." Zara materialized directly behind Maya, claws extended for a killing strike. Maya didn't turn around. But parallel dimensions still follow physical laws. And where there are laws, there are loopholes. Maya reached behind herself without looking and grabbed Zara's wrist as she phased back into reality. The alien's eyes widened in shock as Maya's grip prevented her from shifting back to safety. Humans have been theorizing about dimensional physics for centuries. We may not have the technology to travel between layers, but we understand the mathematics. And math tells us that dimensional transitions require a fixed anchor point in base reality. Maya's free hand found the nerve clustered behind Zara's primary audio receptor. "Tagged you." Number 8 joined her predecessors in unconsciousness. The crowd was no longer hostile. They were mesmerized. Maya Chen wasn't just defeating elite warriors. She was doing it while providing educational commentary. It was like watching a predator that had learned to teach while hunting. "For more to go," Maya announced, stretching her shoulders. Anyone else want to discuss the fascinating intersection of xenobiology and applied physics? The remaining fighters exchanged worried glances. This wasn't going according to plan. Nothing about Maya Chen was going according to plan. Fighter number 9 was Corvex the Star Render, whose species had evolved in the heart of a dying star. His body was living plasma held in a semi-solid state by pure will. Traditional pressure point attacks were useless against someone whose nervous system was made of coherent energy. Maya studied him for longer this time, walking in that same lazy circle while Corvex prepared attacks that could melt starship hulls. "Energy being," she mused. "Fascinating. Tell me, do you maintain coherence through electromagnetic fields or gravitational binding?" Corvex unleashed a blast of plasma that turned a section of the arena floor into molten metal. "Die, human insect." Maya dodged casually. "Electromagnetic, then, which means you have a resonance frequency. Everything with electromagnetic coherence does." She pulled something small from her pocket. A simple device that looked like a tuning fork crossed with a whistle. Humans love their music. We've gotten very good at understanding frequency and resonance. She activated the device. The sound it made was barely audible to most species in the crowd. But Corvex screamed as his plasma form began to oscillate uncontrollably. His coherent structure wavered, destabilized by a frequency that disrupted his electromagnetic binding. Just a little harmonic interference. Maya explained as Corvex collapsed into a puddle of cooling plasma. He'll reconstitute in a few hours with nothing worse than a headache and wounded pride. 3 more fighters remained. All of them were reconsidering their life choices. Fighter number 10, Nexus Prime, was a hive mind entity controlling multiple bodies simultaneously. Fighter number 11, Shadow Maw the Eternal, was an ancient being who had been winning battles since before Maya's species discovered fire. Fighter number 12, the final challenge, was Kraxon himself, returned for revenge and armed with 6 months of preparation time. Maya defeated them all. Nexus Prime fell when Maya disrupted his quantum entanglement communication network with a simple electromagnetic pulse generator she'd built from arena equipment. Shadow Maw the Eternal discovered that age was no defense against precisely applied acupressure to nerve clusters that had remained unchanged for millions of years. And Kraxon? Kraxon lasted the longest. 6 months of preparation had made him faster, stronger, more unpredictable. He attacked from angles Maya hadn't seen before, used combinations she hadn't anticipated. For 3 full minutes, the crowd watched the first actual fight of the evening. Maya had to work for this victory, had to adapt in real time as Kraxon proved that he had learned from their first encounter. But humans, as Maya had tried to tell the galaxy, were very good at adaptation. When Kraxon finally fell, it wasn't the same nerve strike that had defeated him before. This time, Maya used a completely different approach, finding a pressure point in his lower torso that triggered protective paralysis reflexes species had developed to prevent internal injuries during molting season. Evolution is funny, Maya said conversationally as medics rushed to check on her 12 unconscious opponents. Every adaptation that helps a species survive can also become a vulnerability under the right circumstances. She looked up at the silent crowd. 60,000 beings staring down at the human girl who had just single-handedly defeated the most elite fighting force ever assembled. The galaxy keeps making the same mistake, she continued, her voice carrying clearly through the perfect acoustics. You see humans as weak because we're not naturally armored. You see us as harmless because we don't have claws or venom or plasma breath. But you're missing something fundamental about us. She gestured to the unconscious fighters surrounding her. We don't need to be the strongest. We don't need to be the fastest. We just need to be smart enough to find the right leverage point and determined enough to use it. Every species in the galaxy has spent millions of years evolving to be perfect killing machines. Humans? We spent our evolution learning to kill perfect killing machines. She picked up a microphone from the referee's station. So let me make this crystal clear for everyone watching across the galaxy. Humans aren't weak. We're not harmless. We're not inferior. We're different, and different is dangerous when you don't understand it. Maya's eyes swept the crowd one final time. The galaxy challenged us to prove we belong here. Challenge accepted. Mission accomplished. Any questions? The arena erupted in sound, but it wasn't the hostile roar from the beginning of the match. It was something new. Respect, fear, awe, and genuine excitement all mixed together in cacophony that would be remembered for generations. Maya Chen had done more than win a tournament. She had redefined what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had never taken her species seriously. As she walked toward the exit, she paused at the edge of the platform and looked back at the crowd one more time. Oh, and one more thing, she called out with that same sharp smile. This was just the demonstration round. If anyone wants to see what humans can really do when we stop playing nice. She let the threat hang in the air like a challenge waiting to be accepted. You know where to find us. The human girl walked out of the arena, leaving behind a galaxy that was seeing her species with completely new eyes. And somewhere in the depths of space, on a small blue planet called Earth, millions of humans watched the news feeds and smiled. The galaxy had been put on notice. Humanity had officially arrived, and they were just getting started.